Saujanya Media presents Journey to Australia, an eye-opening episode from Australia only on INFOPLUS, Kantipur Television. This program is in association with 360 Education Solutions Private Limited, PAC ASIA Services Nepal, serving since last 1 decade. PAC ASIA is committed towards our students to provide them with the best career counseling.
दर्शक नमस्कार, यहाँहरूलाई कार्यक्रममा स्वागत छ। हामी जर्नी टु अस्ट्रेलिया एपिसोड लिएर उपस्थित भएका छौँ। यहाँहरूले कार्यक्रम इन्फो प्लस कान्तिपुर टेलिभिजनमा हरेक शनिबार बेलुकी 7:30 बजे र यसको पुनः प्रसारण हरेक शुक्रबार बिहान 11:30 बजे हेर्दै आउनु भएको छ। सन् 2007 देखि निरन्तर रूपमा हामीले यो टेलिभिजनमा यहाँहरूका लागि विदेशका विभिन्न भूभागमा गएर प्रत्यक्ष जानकारी सङ्कलन गर्दै यहाँहरू समक्ष प्रस्तुत गरिरहेका छौँ। र दर्शकबिन हामीलाई हजारौंको संख्यामा विद्यार्थीहरूले प्रश्न सोध्ने गर्नुभएको छ, इमेल पठाउनु गर्नुभएको छ र यहाँहरूले दिनुभएको सल्लाह सुझावले हामीलाई यो कार्यक्रमलाई थप रोचक जानकारीमूलक बनाउने प्रेरणा मिलेको छ। र दर्शकबिन हामी यहाँहरूलाई विदेशका विभिन्न भूभागबाट कार्यक्रमहरू प्रस्तुत गर्ने क्रममा अबको यो पछिल्लो एपिसोड लिएर उपस्थित भएका छौँ सिडनीबाट।
Journey to Australia.
सपनाको मुलुक भनिने अस्ट्रेलिया जान धेरै विद्यार्थीहरू लालयित छन्। गत वर्ष मात्र करिब 9000 विद्यार्थीहरूले अस्ट्रेलिया जाने उद्देश्यले शिक्षा मन्त्रालयबाट नो अब्जेक्सन लेटर लिएको तथ्याङ्कले अस्ट्रेलिया प्रतिको क्रेजलाई पुष्टि गर्दछ। नेपालभन्दा भौगोलिक हिसाबले करिब 52 गुणा ठुलो छ अस्ट्रेलिया, तर नेपालको भन्दा कम जनसङ्ख्या छ। विगत 25 वर्षदेखि बिना कुनै रोकावट निरन्तर रूपमा आर्थिक वृद्धि गरिरहेको अस्ट्रेलिया विकसित आधुनिक तथा बहुसांस्कृतिक मुलुक हो। विश्वकै मोस्ट डिजायरेबल ट्राभल डेस्टिनेसन मध्येको एक अस्ट्रेलियामा वार्षिक 60 लाख पर्यटकहरू घुम्नका लागि पुग्ने गर्दछन्। विश्वस्तरीय फुड, वाइन, मनै लोभ्याउने आकर्षक बीचहरू, फ्रेन्डली पिपल, रिल्याक्स्ड एटमोस्फियर, सुन्दर प्राकृतिक छटा अस्ट्रेलियाका मनमोहक दृश्यहरू हुन्। जर्नी टु अस्ट्रेलिया एपिसोड अन्तर्गत आज अस्ट्रेलियाको सिडनी विशेष प्रस्तुत गर्दैछौँ। नेपाल र सिडनी बीचको दूरी 7981 किलोमिटर छ। 10 घण्टा 30 मिनेटको निरन्तर हवाई उडानपछि पुगिन्छ अस्ट्रेलियाको सिडनी स्थित किङ्सफोर्ड स्मिथ इन्टरनेसनल एयरपोर्ट। सिडनीको समय नेपालको भन्दा 4 घण्टा 15 मिनेट अगाडि छ। न्यू साउथ वेल्सको स्टेट क्यापिटल हो सिडनी र अस्ट्रेलियाको मुख्य इकोनोमिक हब। क्राइम रेट अत्यन्तै कम रहेको सुरक्षित अस्ट्रेलियामा वेल कनेक्टेड ट्रेन तथा पब्लिक ट्रान्सपोर्टेसन सिस्टम छ, जसले त्यहाँको दैनिकी सहज र व्यवस्थित बनाइदिएको छ। सिडनीमा मात्र विश्वस्तरीय 11वटा युनिभर्सिटीहरू छन्, जसमा अध्ययन गर्दा आफ्नो भविष्य सुनिश्चित भएको ठान्छन् विद्यार्थीहरू। विद्यार्थीहरूको छनौटको हिसाबले सिडनी हाईएस्ट र्याङ्किङ सिटी हो भन्ने कुरा रिसर्चले प्रमाणित गरिसकेको छ। तथ्याङ्कले देखाउँछ कि नेपाल जस्तै मुलुकहरूबाट गएका 1 लाख भन्दा बढी अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय विद्यार्थीहरूको निर्विकल्प छनौट सिडनी हुने गरेको छ। शिक्षाको जननी मानिने बेलायती मोडलको शिक्षण पद्धति अवलम्बन गरेको सिडनीका विश्वविद्यालयहरूमा करिब 50,000 र भोकेसनल तथा इङ्ग्लिस कोर्समा गरी थप 50,000 र कुल 1 लाख अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय विद्यार्थीहरू सिडनीमा मात्र अध्ययन गर्छन्। व्यावहारिक शिक्षा पढेको सर्टिफिकेट विश्वव्यापी बिक्ने, डिग्निटी अफ लेबर, भ्यालु अफ टाइम, वर्ल्ड क्लास लाइफस्टाइल जिउने चाहना, इन्टरनेसनल मार्केटमा जान सक्ने पहुँच, आर्थिक सम्पन्नता, आफ्नो तरिकाले जीवन जिउन सकिने लगायतका कारणहरू नै सिडनी मोहको मूल विषय बन्न गएको छ।
Journey to Australia.
दर्शकबिन आजको यो जर्नी टु अस्ट्रेलिया एपिसोडको हामी एउटा विशेष अङ्क देखाइरहेका छौँ र आजको हामी एउटा युनिभर्सिटीको फिचर यहाँहरूलाई प्रस्तुत गर्छौँ। यो युनिभर्सिटी रहेको छ युनिभर्सिटी अफ मक्वेरी। नेपालबाट धेरै विद्यार्थीहरू यो युनिभर्सिटीमा अध्ययन गर्न आएका छन्। विकसित मुलुकमा गई अध्ययन गर्ने सपना बोकेका हजारौं विद्यार्थीहरूलाई हामीले यसै कार्यक्रम मार्फत सोध्ने गरेका थियौं विदेश जानुको उद्देश्य के हो। उनीहरूको जवाफ आउने गर्थ्यो विश्वस्तरीय युनिभर्सिटीमा पढ्ने र ग्लोबल सिटिजन बन्ने। विश्वस्तरीय शिक्षा प्रदान गर्ने शिक्षण संस्था कस्तो हुन्छ त? अब हामी यहाँहरूलाई अस्ट्रेलियाको सिडनी स्थित सेन्ट्रल स्टेशनबाट ट्रेनमा करिब आधा घण्टामा पुगिने वान अफ द बेस्ट युनिभर्सिटी मक्वारी युनिभर्सिटीको बारेमा जानकारी दिन गइरहेका छौँ। What about Macquarie University, in fact?
Well, Macquarie is a great university because it's so young and very vibrant and very dynamic. And so I see a lot of potential for this university. I would like to see Macquarie as one of the most internationally engaged universities out of all of the Australian universities. And that means we're sending our students overseas to get international experience. We're bringing in students from a variety of countries. We're doing research with a variety of partners around the world. This is all my vision of where I would like Macquarie to go.
मक्वारी युनिभर्सिटी आजभन्दा 50 वर्ष अघि सिडनी अस्ट्रेलियामा स्थापना भएको अस्ट्रेलियाको हाईएस्ट पर्फर्मिङ रिसर्च युनिभर्सिटी हो। परम्परागत सोच र पठन पाठन शैलीलाई परिवर्तन गरी वर्तमान विश्वले खोजेको सबल, सक्षम र सिपयुक्त विश्वस्तरीय जनशक्ति उत्पादन गर्ने उद्देश्यका साथ मक्वारी युनिभर्सिटी लागि परेको छ। अनुसन्धानात्मक शिक्षाले व्यक्तिको दक्षतामा निखार ल्याउँछ, व्यावहारिक प्रयोगशालामा खरो उत्रन सबल तुल्याउँछ, बजार र विश्वले खोजेको रेडी टु युज जनशक्ति जन्माउँछ। यसैलाई आत्मसात गरी विभिन्न विषय र विधामा अनुसन्धानात्मक ढङ्गले पठन पाठन सञ्चालन गर्दै आएको मक्वारी युनिभर्सिटीले वाइफाईको आविष्कार गर्यो भने मोटर न्युरोन डिजिज तथा पार्किन्सन्स डिजिजबारे नयाँ तथ्य पत्ता लगाउने क्रममा छ।
We have very, very high quality programs. So over 85% of our research has been judged by the Australian government to be at or above the world standard. And in terms of some really unique things about Macquarie, which students may not know, we are the only Australian university to own our own hospital. So we actually own a private hospital which runs state-of-the-art equipment. There's some equipment here that only exists here, not anywhere else in Australia.
Macquarie युनिभर्सिटीले QS वर्ल्ड युनिभर्सिटी र्याङ्किङ्स 2015 मा 5 QS पाएको छ। एकाडेमिक र्याङ्किङ अफ द वर्ल्ड युनिभर्सिटिज 2014 मा विश्वका टप 2% युनिभर्सिटीमा सूचीकृत छ भने यहाँ सञ्चालन हुने 9 वटा विषयहरू विश्वका टप 100 विषयभित्र परेको छ। फाइनान्शियल टाइम्स 2015 अनुसार MBA कोर्सका लागि विश्वमा टप 68 र अस्ट्रेलियाको 1 नम्बर युनिभर्सिटी बन्न सफल भएको छ। नेपाल लगायतका विकासोन्मुख मुलुकहरूबाट अस्ट्रेलिया जाने विद्यार्थीहरूको पहिलो छनौट हो म्यानेजमेन्ट कोर्स र यो कोर्स अध्ययनको लागि मक्वारी युनिभर्सिटी एक स्थापित नाम हो।
Our faculty is called as Faculty of Business and Economics. Within Faculty of Business and Economics, we have 4 main departments ranging from economics to accounting, and we have business mostly with management and marketing departments, and the last one which caters the needs of actuarial studies, finance and so on.
Practical based learning र मोडर्न टिचिङ मेथोडोलोजी आत्मसात गरेको यस युनिभर्सिटीमा नेपालबाट मात्र 100 भन्दा बढी विद्यार्थीहरू अध्ययन गरिरहेका छन्।
We do follow a typical format of lectures with the tutorials. In some of our units we run seminars. Similarly, we run our teaching in terms of more field trips, work integrated learning. So we're very conscious of using methods which are contemporary or modern, and then all international students, they feel like they can learn quite easily as compared to the methods that typically they use it at home when they come from their country.
मक्वारी युनिभर्सिटी PhD कोर्सको लागि विद्यार्थीमाझ उत्तिकै प्रसिद्ध छ। हाल विभिन्न देशका गरी 200 भन्दा बढी विद्यार्थीहरू PhD कोर्समा अध्ययन गरिरहेका छन्। रिसर्च युनिभर्सिटीको परिचय बनाएको मक्वारी युनिभर्सिटीमा मास्टर्स अफ रिसर्च कोर्समा धेरै नेपाली विद्यार्थीहरू अध्ययनरत छन्।
We're from the Faculty of Business and Economics at Macquarie University, and we have about 170 PhD students, high degree research students all up, and another 30 Master of Research students. So we have about over 200 PhD students. And they cover a range of different areas, from accounting and corporate governance to applied finance and actuarial studies to economics and to marketing and management. Our program is a 3-year program. And many of our students, probably half of our cohort, are international students coming from countries around the world, from North Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Europe, and Nepal as well. We have many students in the Master of Research program in Nepal, from Nepal. Most of the funding for international students would come from scholarship program. The students get supported. We provide them, all of our HDR students, with $10,000 Australian dollars for funding over 3 years. So that allows them to travel overseas, to present at a conference, to buy research data, transcribe interviews. So they're well funded when they get here.
सम्बन्धित देशसँगको सम्बन्धलाई अझ प्रगाढ बनाउने र त्यहाँको शैक्षिक गुणस्तर माथि उठाउने उद्देश्यले यस युनिभर्सिटीले विश्वविद्यालय तथा प्रतिष्ठित शिक्षण संस्थासँग साझेदारी गर्ने गरेको छ।
We have a significant number of Nepalese students here, and to develop that sort of relationship, there are lots of student support service which through the program you have noticed here. But from our office, what we are trying to develop, going one step beyond to the student, we are tying up with the reputed Nepalese universities, and then with that tie-up, we sign lots of MOUs. And what we like to do, a real partnership and engagement with these universities. Macquarie University means service and engagement.
Macquarie University भूकम्पबाट प्रभावित नेपाली विद्यार्थीहरूलाई लक्षित गरी जेनरस स्कलरशिप समेत दिने भएको छ।
The admission part is very easy. We have online mq.edu.au. If any student goes to this website, they will get all the information. At the same time, we have a few university representative in Nepal, like for an example, PAC ASIA. So our student who wants to study at Macquarie University in the future, they can certainly contact us through our website or through our local representative in Kathmandu. Australia, we do international student barometer. So the feedback what we are getting, that 88% and above students are satisfied or very satisfied with the service we are providing here. And certainly it shows that if it is 88 or 90% students are satisfied or very satisfied, then it shows that we are doing the right thing.
पक्कै पनि दर्शकबिन यहाँ आइसकेपछि विद्यार्थीहरूले त्यो अवसरलाई आफ्नो सुख दुःख उनीहरूको सङ्घर्षलाई अवसरमा बदल्ने प्रयास गरिरहेका छन्। विद्यार्थी भएर बस्दा उनीहरूले सङ्घर्ष त पक्कै गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ, काम पढाइ र पढाइको कुरामा नेपालमा जुन थ्योरिटिकल प्याटर्नमा पढाइ हुन्थ्यो, यहाँ प्र्याक्टिकल अप्रोचमा पढाउने भाषा शैली रहनसहन संस्कृतिले गर्दा केही सुरुमा आफूलाई एडजस्ट हुन अप्ठ्यारो भएको उनीहरूले बताएका छन्। यद्यपि एकाध महिनापछि यो वातावरणमा उनीहरू सहजै घुलमिल भएका छन् र धेरै विद्यार्थीहरूले जो यहाँ पढिसकेका छन्, पढिसकेपछि आफ्नो देशको लागि पनि केही गर्ने बताइरहेका छन्। यो देशको लागि अत्यन्तै सुखद कुरा हो। दर्शकबिन आजको जर्नी टु अस्ट्रेलियाको यो पहिलो एपिसोडमा हामीले समग्र अस्ट्रेलियाको मुख्य सहर सिडनी र सिडनीमा अवस्थित अस्ट्रेलियाकै टप 10 भित्र पर्ने मक्वारी विश्वविद्यालयको बारेमा तयार पारिएको यो विशेष सामग्री यहाँहरूलाई प्रस्तुत गर्यौं। अब आगामी एपिसोड 2 को बारेमा यहाँहरू पक्कै उत्सुक हुनुहुन्छ होला।
स्टुडेन्टहरू यहाँ आइसकेपछि अब आफ्नो जुन टार्गेट र आफ्नो उद्देश्य आफ्नो स्टडिजबाट चाहिँ डेभिएट नभइकन त्यसैमा अब लागि पर्ने हो भने डेफिनेटली अब opportunities पाउँछ।
It's really a holistic approach, to be honest, where you combine transdisciplinary as well as your practical knowledge together to build a character.
नेपाल र इन्डियामा पढ्दा चाहिँ हामी बुकमा मात्रै पढ्छौँ कि इक्विपमेन्टले यस्तो यस्तो काम गर्छ है भनिन्छ, अनि अब त्यही रटेर गइन्छ। यहाँ चाहिँ त्यो हेर्न नि पाइन्छ, यसरी काम गर्छ भन्ने पनि हुन्छ।
राम्रो युनिभर्सिटीमा पढेर त्यो युनिभर्सिटीमा आफ्नो एउटा सर्कल या रेफरेन्स यदि आफ्नो त्यहाँको स्टाफहरूसँग बनायो भने चाहिँ that will help you in a long way.
दर्शकबिन जर्नी टु अस्ट्रेलियाको पहिलो एपिसोड हामीले यहाँहरूलाई प्रस्तुत गर्यौं। आजको एपिसोडमा समग्र अस्ट्रेलिया त्यसैगरी सिडनी र सिडनीमा अवस्थित मक्वारी विश्वविद्यालयको बारेमा हामीले विशेष जानकारी प्रस्तुत गर्यौं र आज प्रस्तुत गरेको कार्यक्रमको विषयमा यहाँहरुसँग केही सल्लाह सुझाव र प्रश्नहरू छन् भने हामीलाई एसएमएस पठाउन सक्नुहुनेछ र दर्शकबिन खास गरी मक्वारी विश्वविद्यालयसँग सम्बन्धित यहाँहरुको प्रश्नको जवाफ हामी आगामी एपिसोडमा सम्बन्धित युनिभर्सिटीका प्रतिनिधि मार्फत दिने प्रयास गर्नेछौं र यहाँहरुले हामीलाई एसएमएस मार्फत प्रश्न सोध्न सक्नुहुनेछ र त्यसको लागि यहाँहरुले मोबाइलमा मेसेज बक्समा गई इन्फो लेख्नुस्, त्यसैगरी आफ्नो प्रश्न टाइप गर्नुस् र 2426 मा सेन्ड गर्नुस्। दर्शकबिन यो जानकारीसँगै अब हामी छोटो ब्रेक लिन्छौं र ब्रेक पश्चात नेपाल स्थित अस्ट्रेलियन राजदूतसँग गरिएको कुराकानीको भिडियो रेकर्डिङ लिएर उपस्थित हुनेछौं।
Journey to Australia, an eye-opening episode from Australia only on INFOPLUS, Kantipur Television. This program is in association with 360 Education Solutions Private Limited, PAC Asia Services Nepal, serving since last 1 decade. PAC Asia is committed towards our students to provide them with the best career counseling.
First of all, Excellency, you are welcome to my TV show.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure to have you on my show.
And I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you, Sean.
We are recently back from Australia, especially Sydney, and we visited a couple of institutions, universities there, and we got a chance to see, to talk with more than 50 Nepalese students who are studying in various universities. And the title of the show is Journey to Australia. So may I request you, Excellency, to say a few words about Journey to Australia, the initiatives of like Saujanya Media and in association with PAC ASIA?
I think the concept, as you described, Journey to Australia, sounds a very good one in terms of being able to better inform Nepalese about what it's like to travel to and then, of course, study in Australia. I recognise that through my diplomatic career, travelling to a fresh new country has all sorts of issues to it in terms of how will I live, who will I meet, what is the weather like, what should I take with me?
Exactly.
I think the idea of being able to assist people make those sort of decisions is a very good one, and I compliment you and your program team on coming up with the notion.
What would be the issues that are concerned to Embassy to bring forward into our show in future?
In the future, I think what you need is a frank look at what it's like to study in Australia.
Okay.
I mean, it's not the cheapest place in the world, but it is one of the more excellent places to receive an education, higher education.
Could you enlighten my viewers by sharing your views about Australia as a country, its economy, lifestyle, scope, and particularly Sydney for international students?
The issue, or rather, if you're looking for a short summary of what Australia is like to live in and study in, Australians generally tend to be very direct. They're very friendly, mostly, and people will find the weather in places like Sydney, for example, are quite mild compared to perhaps other places in the world. Australia is an exotic place for many people from overseas. We are a very multicultural community, so that we have a smallish number of Nepalese that have made Australia home, but we have large numbers of people from all over the world that have travelled to Australia and are either studying or in fact have now decided to live in Australia. So we're a country of 23 million people, smaller than Nepal in that sense, but much bigger in geographic terms.
2 times bigger than Nepal.
It is, and basically when you live in Australia you have to come to grips with the fact that everything is a long way away. At least everything from the cities are a long way away. To get to Perth will take you 4 hours to fly. That is on the western part of Australia. To drive will take you 5 days, driving at 120 kilometres an hour. I know it takes you 5 days to get from the far west of Nepal to Kathmandu by bus, but here we're talking about 5,000 kilometres. It's a different order of scale. That said, it is a continent, and people can get to know that continent very well in the time that they spend in Australia during school holiday or university holiday times and other opportunities on weekends. Sydney as a place has very many places for tourism and not just study. So we'd like to think that people that come to Australia also get to know Australia through its tourism opportunities and its restaurants, its beaches, its mountains, and its people generally.
Despite of having other very good destinations like US, UK, Germany, New Zealand, then why Nepalese students should go to Australia?
I think individuals, that is students, make up their own mind about where is the place they want to be. Australia has a number of things going for it. It's got a nice climate.
Okay.
It speaks English. Its major cities are multicultural, so people feel at home in those sort of environments. It is not the cheapest place in the world. I wouldn't suggest that it is. However, it is one of the best places in the world that you can receive a higher education. And the degrees that people earn in Sydney or in Australia are in fact earned. They're not just awarded.
Okay.
You have to work hard to get an Australian degree. But that degree is applicable anywhere in the world where you want to go. So you have a ticket for the rest of the world and to come back here to Nepal, of course, and contribute to the country through those sort of opportunities.
Actually, the students, who regularly watch our show, and the students who are going abroad, normally we ask to them that, why you are going abroad, and normally they answer to us that we are going there for quality education.
Yep.
How does Australia maintain that quality education?
The first thing, we have something like 43 universities, I believe, in Australia.
Yes.
In essence, that's partly a self-regulation process, so that each university decides on its pattern of study, its pattern of faculties, and essentially the standard they'll come to. There's also a connection with the private sector through professional organisations and associations, such as the Medical Association of Australia. They have a say, or at least are invited to comment about the sort of degrees that lead to a career in medical science or medical practice.
Okay.
And the same is true for engineers, the same is true for other professionals. Also in Australia, there is an organisation set up called TEXA, which is it's the Tertiary Education Quality Standards Agency. Now, it's appointed by the Commonwealth Department of Education. In fact, the Minister for Education.
This is for the school level, isn't it?
This is for higher education, universities. So it helps set those sort of standards. It works with universities that are perhaps having difficulty working out where they should be in the market.
This is kind of regulatory body.
Regulatory, I think, is too strong a word. I think this is an agency that is set up to assist universities find their place, find the standard that they're seeking, and ensuring that the standards meet a certain sort of level.
Is this same for the university and colleges? Because you have like vocational colleges as well.
Vocational colleges
are...
No, this is a separate thing for universities. So TEXA has been set up for universities, an independent body. So it advises universities, it also advises the government. But the government doesn't regulate Australian universities in the sense that it has a required pro forma of things that they need to study or do. You will find that universities generally, since they do operate as quasi-businesses, I guess, basically set out their own success path. So they look at their past performance, they look at where they want to be in the future in terms of their student outcomes, and they adjust their standards accordingly.
Education in Australia is linked to Australian economy. It has contributed a lot for the Australian economy. So how does Australian government take, to move forward, to strengthen education or to attract international students in Australia in coming days?
Look, I don't doubt, in fact I agree totally that education is a very strong sector of the Australian economy. But the first thing we have to remember is that the Australian university system is set up to educate people, not to make money. So they are not necessarily profit-generating organisations. They certainly don't operate at a loss. And the profit they do generate is used to plough back into the professional learning experience, I guess, or the pursuit of knowledge generally. I mean, universities in Australia also provide study grants for things like PhD students to look at particular areas of study and scientific endeavour. It's an important area, and clearly international students coming to Australia are a very important, significant factor. And it's not just the universities. Clearly, these people, these students, live somewhere.
Exactly.
They eat somewhere. They might even purchase a car. They travel. So it's one of these seamless, multi-dimensional issues that certainly it's an important factor. And certainly there are, I guess, bureaucrats in Australia that look at the Bureau of Statistics, for example, and maybe finance. We'll look at how much money these individuals are bringing to Australia and saying, well, this is how much we've made out of the thing. But people are employed in Australia because of it. Universities have a more varied and higher level of education and lifestyle because of overseas students. So I think you'll find if you ask any Australian Vice-Chancellor, he or she will always say that it's great to have international students at Australian universities, simply because of the depth of character and education outcomes they bring with them as students. It's a great way also, of course, to get networking between various countries, not just Nepal and Australia. Just the other day I noticed that the Chancellor for Macquarie University had been here. Signing an MOU with Macquarie. With Tribhuvan. Yeah. This suggests to me that the relationships between universities are starting to grow. Deakin University just a few weeks ago offered 2 50% sponsorships, scholarships I should say, to study in Australia to Nepalese students. I believe some of the other universities have offered similar sort of arrangements. What we're trying to do here is grow the partnership, that is the cultural, business and commercial relationship between Nepal and Australia through education partly.
Actually, let's look back the statistics of Ministry of Education. I just went through the statistics. It's around 10,000 students who took no objection letter from Ministry of Education last year only. So it shows that there is a huge demand of Nepalese students who want to have Australian degree or want to go to Australia further. So personally, Excellency, what do you think? Is this a sustainable number or sustainable growth?
Yeah, look, is it sustainable? I think that's a question you should ask the students themselves. The question is, will it ever grow? I guess it will, but maybe not exponentially or geometrically. I mean, Nepal is a least developed country. It has all the concerns and issues of a least developed country in terms of economic development, family incomes, education levels, etc. So is there a never-ending pool of Nepalese students that would be acceptable to Australian universities? Probably not. The 10,000 that perhaps have no objection letters to travel or have already gone are a group of people that may ebb or flow. It really depends on the market forces at work here and also the quality of those students to be able to be accepted by Australian universities. Australian universities will not accept students that they don't feel will be able to complete their courses.
Exactly.
And that's true from an academic perspective, and unfortunately it's also true from a financial perspective. It does cost money to go to Australia and study. Obviously. And if you don't have any financial resources, you would find it very difficult to be able to get to Australia to study in the first place.
Exactly.
So a university would probably not offer you a position if they felt you couldn't actually get there to do it. So as I say, I think I'll call it academic horsepower in terms of the ability of students to actually complete a degree or a higher education degree as they should. As an international student, people are not given a free ride through Australian universities. Just because you're a fee-paying student doesn't mean you will definitely pass. Unless you are capable and work hard at getting that degree, you won't get a pass. So you'll have spent the money and not achieved anything. You may have had a great time in Australia for 3 or 4 years, but unfortunately you won't come home with a degree. So there's a lot of work involved. And I think if I can emphasise anything to your listeners and viewers, is that people need to be very sure about what they want to study in the first place. They also need to be very sure about living away from home for
Exactly.
a number of years, and they need to be very sure about the amount of work they'll have to put into that degree at the end of the day.
Even they have to understand that Sydney is one of the expensive city in the world.
Well, Sydney is one of the world's more expensive cities, unfortunately. There's several of them in Australia. It's perhaps not the most expensive in the world to live, and I guess even in the most expensive place in the world, you can still afford to live modestly.
Exactly.
You may not be having a 5-course meal every night, but at least you can afford to live. And that's one of the factors that people need to consider in terms of planning on a degree from Australia. Not just their academic progress, but also their financial support.
We met more than 50 students. We interviewed them. Normally they are there for the courses like management or accounting, MBA or nursing kind of courses, and these all are like PR leading courses. So most of these students, are on that particular courses. So our concern, our general query is, Australia has, or Australian universities have so many other popular courses. So as far as the Australian government is concerned, is there any other courses that you want to promote for Nepalese students?
Look, people that choose to go to Australia choose to go to Australia. They choose their own education path. The Australian government doesn't say, you must study this or we want you to study that. Australia has in the past offered scholarships, but in that case, even then we don't say, you must study this. What we've done is say, we will offer scholarships in this certain band of professions, not a problem. And at the end of the day, education in this way, professional sort of expertise, is very useful for Nepal. It's very important that people are encouraged to come back to Nepal and contribute back to their own society, particularly post-earthquake. Nepal has so many challenges in front of it, and any number of professional people are needed back in Nepal to lift the country into the future.
Don't you think that there is a kind of lacking, some sort of lacking, because British Council and UK has like British Council and US Embassy has US here, and don't you realize that Australian Embassy or Australian government has to establish a body to give right counselling to the students so that they come and approach to that particular organisation and get proper counselling and go to Australia?
Well, I think it's another one of these cases where the buyer beware. As I said, people need to establish for their own peace of mind that the university they've chosen is the one they want to go to, and that can be done through the internet. There's also a number of education fairs that are held here in Kathmandu from about every 6 months. So certainly people are welcome to come along to those sort of opportunities and talk to some of the universities that are represented here in the country. A lot of them are actually also located in New Delhi, so if people really wanted to, they could take a trip to New Delhi and perhaps seek out one of the university representatives there to talk to them about what sort of course of study they want. But mostly you should be able to get a fairly good idea about what's available through the internet process. All of these universities have internet calendars. In other words, they can look at what's required for a course, what the outcome of the course is, and what the makeup of the course is. They can also, as I say, once every 6 months at least, attend one of these education fairs here in Kathmandu, which are advertised in the local press, and talk to some of the universities that are represented. I think there was 23 here just over the last weekend. They might not be the ones they want to actually go to, but they can certainly get a good idea what a university is like in Australia by talking to other universities as well. And the other issue, of course, is visas. People will need to look at the visa structure in terms of what they need to prepare in terms of the visa application, how much it costs, and what sort of background information is sought. And again, all of that is available on the internet. There are also a plethora of agents around town, but personally I'd suggest to people look first at the the Australian Immigration Internet site to get a better idea of exactly what they're looking at.
While talking about international education here in Nepal, we have so many colleges who are getting affiliation from UK universities and getting affiliation one or two from US. Can Australian Embassy facilitate to any those kind of institutions who can offer like Australian vocational courses here, so that students can have similar kind of education here locally?
Yep. Look, I understand the point, and I think it's a very good one, that if the market is here, why can't Australian universities come and participate with local institutions to provide those sort of same level of courses? So I think it's a very good question. I think it's one that you need to ask your own institutions here as much as Australian universities. As I mentioned earlier, the Macquarie Chancellor had been here signing an MOU. I'm not quite sure what that MOU is yet. I haven't seen a copy of it. I know that other universities have been here in the past, talking to at least the big universities like Tribhuvan. It's, how can we put this? It's a chicken-egg situation. I think it's a chicken and egg situation. We need to have the network set up so that these conversations can actually happen. We now have, as you say, thousands of Nepalese students that have been studying in Australia, and many of whom have returned home. They can have that sort of conversation through their own institutions here, like Tribhuvan and other universities, and ask them to actually talk to Australian institutions about setting up these sort of strategic partnerships, I guess. They do cost money, and it's got to be a business model, I guess, that universities would have to look at. But I think we're starting to see just the first edge of that envelope at this stage. What can be done to encourage it? I'm open to suggestion. But whenever I get the chance to talk to universities from Australia, I do say, is there any chance that you can sort of have a relationship with some institutions here? And generally speaking, there's an air of interest. There's an air of interest, but it may not have happened yet.
Finally, any message to my viewers?
Look, if people choose to travel to Australia to study, I hope they have a very good experience. I'm sure they will have a very good experience. The vast majority of international students and Nepalese students that go to Australia do have a great time in the country. They get to know the country, they get to know the people. They come back with a bankable resource, which is their degree, and they can. And I'd look forward to them returning to put that degree and professionalism into sync with what the country's needs are in terms of the future of economic development. It's a very important thing that people come back here and contribute, not just send money back.
Okay. Thank you so much, Excellency, for your precious time.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Australia. Please let me know if there's something else I can do.
Journey to Australia.
दर्शकवृन्द, आजको एपिसोड यही समाप्त भएको छ। जाँदा जाँदै हाम्रो टेक्निकल चिफ गौरमान शेरचनको साथमा म श्याम कणेल यो अस्ट्रेलिया विशेष एपिसोडबाट बिदा माग्छु। आगामी हप्ता पुनः यहाँहरूसँग भेट हुने नै छ। नमस्कार।
INFOPLUS, for genuine information.